Hi, I'm Jimmy Colefax, and this is The Story. Our guest today is Miranda Burness from Ballarat, who's sharing her life journey. And as we heard before the break, she was hit by a car. And just as she struck the pavement, she began to have an out-of-body experience. Now, we're going to find out what happened next on that day.
I just felt I was somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I was fully aware that I was somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I also felt like every time a thought came to my mind, or like trying to work out where I was, it was like I was being hit by a supernatural love or comfort.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I also was aware that there was other people there. There were others where I was, and when I think of, even though it was many years ago, for me, it was like yesterday. I also felt I was out of time. Like time didn't exist.
Oh, this is all outside of time.
I can't explain it, but I knew who I was. I knew that I was married to my husband, Martin. I knew my children. I also knew that. And as I started to move forward it was, as people have sometimes explained, there's like a light, but
Mm-hmm.
the one thing I did know was that the day before I had been praying, and the day before I had asked the Lord to forgive me and to help me. And so I honestly felt that I was in God's presence. And as I started to move forward, I still keep being hit by this sense of a supernatural love. But then I felt, I said, it's okay. I said, it's okay. It feels good to be dead. And I said, I'm not afraid anymore. But as I said those words, I suddenly saw who, to me, was the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw my 4-year-old daughter in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually saw his hands on her shoulders.
Mm.
And as I saw my daughter appear in front of me, I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Lord." I said, "I cannot come now." I said, "Rachel still needs me."
Mm-hmm.
As I said those words, I all of a sudden was hearing voices, and I could see there was an exhaust over my face, and it was actually the exhaust of the second car that I had been flown under.
Oh, wow.
And then I heard all these voices, and then as that was cleared, I could see the people around looking down on me, and I could see Bill, who was the chap in charge of the car park, and he had tears running down his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could only hear voices. I couldn't see much, but I heard the two men, and they were the ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say approximately, 10 minutes, 15 minutes was
Mm-hmm.
that time span by the time the ambulance arrived. And I can remember one of the ambulance men saying, "It's okay." They evidently knew my name,
Mm-hmm.
and they said, "It's okay, Miranda, it's okay. You're going to be all right. We're going to take you." And they mentioned one of the hospitals, one
Mm-hmm.
of the public hospitals. But the moment he mentioned the public hospital, I said, in my mind at that moment, I thought that was my last day. So I wanted to go to a different hospital. I wanted to be where people pray. So, and only because many years ago, in my first year of marriage, I'd had a terrible experience when I was involved in a different accident, okay?
Oh, at that particular hospital?
Yes.
So that hospital had kind of a bad taste in your mouth.
It did. I just thought, I can't go there.
Yeah, so even though you were, in bad shape, you still had the presence of mind to say, no, I don't want to go to that one hospital where I had a bad experience.
Yes. So I said, can I please go to a Christian hospital? That's what I asked him. And it was quite a funny thing to ask when you're in that position.
Yeah.
But he came back to me. He said, wait a moment. He came back and he whispered in my ear and he said, "Miranda, we're taking you to St. Vincent's. Is that okay?" Which is quite funny. And I said, okay. Yes. And
he was
anyway,
probably thinking, you just need to get to a hospital. Don't be too particular.
That's right. It's quite funny when I think about it now.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, looking back, I know why I had to ask that. After the incident, I can look back now and I can see the hand of God at different places.
Yeah.
And one of the things that happened was that when I got to this hospital, initially I'd been rushed around and they were doing all sorts of tests. Then I was in I couldn't see anything because I wasn't right. But all of a sudden I was by myself before my husband arrived and was called, and I felt my wrist being grabbed, and it was the voice of a lady, and she said, "Sweetheart, we were there when you came in this morning in the waiting room on the emergency, and we are all praying for you out there. We've been praying for you." And I believe now that prayer intervened. That was a prayer that intervened on my behalf.
Yeah. Because
I honestly did feel all my legs go on the right-hand side. And the damage that was to that car, when it was later on revealed, it was massive damage. So anyway, that's where I was there.
Who was the lady? Was she a chaplain or something?
No, I don't know to this day.
Oh, wow.
She was just in the, I didn't see her face because I could only hear voices.
Yeah.
But I felt she grabbed my wrist and she just said, "Sweetheart," she said, "we've been praying for you. We were when you came in." So that to me today speaks volumes, that there was prayer all the way through.
Yeah.
I then, my husband did arrive. There were tests. I had lots and lots of stitches through my head, but what had happened, and I wasn't aware at the time, was that I'd had major concussion. I'd had concussion a number of times in life, in sport and different things, and the other accidents and things. But this was a traumatic brain injury, which caused very severe bruising of the brain. And I didn't understand that at that time, but that's one of the main things that affected me. I also had a lot of ribs broken, and half my skin was off as well on my back. But I was later on, after that night, I was transferred from the St. V's to the Sacred Heart. At the time it was the Sacred Heart Hospital in Moreland, where I spent approximately 2 weeks in hospital initially. And anyway, what happened after that was that I was home then for about, another 6 weeks or so in bed, but I wasn't all there. I can't explain it to you. All of a sudden I was stuttering. I couldn't speak properly. I was writing backwards. For many months I just affected me in such a way that I was doing everything back to front, just everything. And I had no memory. I didn't know who was who or what was what. So that was, apart from my body healing itself, that was one of the main things that affected me for a long time. I also was deaf too. I lost my deafness, my memory loss, and I then, when I started walking, my right leg had a very noticeable limp. There was a weakness there in my right thigh. And, of course, as I said, my speech was dramatically affected, my concentration. From a very bright businesswoman who could look at a plan of subdivision, look at all the lots and add up all the measurements quickly for a connecting point for a law firm, I couldn't do any of that. I was home for really all up about 3 months because I had my own business, and I was going to say,
what happened to your business through all this?
Well, from the day I went into the hospital, one of the other girls who was also running her own business, a lovely lady called Christine, she took over my practice. She ran it all, and she continued to run it. And when I came back to work after about 3 months, I honestly wasn't all there. I may have returned
physically,
but I was only, let's say, and I didn't want to lose my clients, but I really wasn't there at all. okay, what Christine would do was she would, because my life was shattered. I couldn't, netball was gone. That's basically it. That was gone. But for my job, I would sit there at the titles office. I'd look pretty in case a client solicitor came in. But Christine did all the talking. After 3 months, she would send me around. She would send me to collect plans, to colour in, one of the properties. That I was treated really like a child. My husband would take me to his school in Essendon, and Christine would pick me up, and she would then bring me back at 3:30, and he would take me home, and I would go to bed about 4 o'clock, 4:30. I don't really remember very much at all about my children for about 2 years after the accident.
Oh, wow. But I was going to say, why was it so important for you just to physically be there? Was it because of your reputation in order to keep the clients?
I was very well known. I was very good at my work, and I had a lot of very good clients.
So they really wanted you to keep those clients, to the point of just having you physically sitting there.
That's right.
Wow.
So I would sit there, as I say, Christine would just do everything. She ran the business.
Yeah.
She ran the business for, I would say, completely, nearly 2 years. But for the first year, she was there. I wasn't doing anything at all, because when I got home, when my husband would take me home, I wasn't aware of my surroundings very much. I was constantly, regularly at the doctor's, basically initially, fortnightly, then monthly. I was at the physio for about, I think, 6 years. But what happened as I was getting better, and I didn't realise this, when my husband thought I was much better, he decided that it would be good for me to invite some of my girlfriends over for lunch. And I was very excited that day, but I can still see I set all the table, and all of a sudden everybody looked, because I had set things back the front. And when I noticed it, I started crying. I ran downstairs and locked myself up in my room. From that point, I realised that, or the doctor realised that, even though I was getting better, I now could see that I couldn't do the work. You know what I mean? I could see what I was doing that wasn't right. I could see that I was writing backwards. I can remember one day at the titles office, I had to hide where no one could see me, because I couldn't add up 2 and 3. I used my fingers to, like on my hand, so it did affect me.
Well, that was part 1 of Eric Scatterbo's conversation with Miranda Burness from Ballarat. We invite you again to join us next time for more of Miranda's incredible story, including the miraculous way the Lord heals her and how she goes on to do wonderful things for Him. Also, she'll share how the vision she had while having an out-of-body experience goes on to provide great comfort to her many years later. All that and more is coming up next time. Meanwhile, if you have experienced a traumatic experience in your life similar to Miranda and would like someone to pray with, our prayer line is 1-800-PRAY-FOR-ME. That's 1-800-772-936. And we'd love to pray with you on that phone number, 1-800-772-936. Finally, we'll end today with a verse from the book of Psalms that really captures what Miranda experienced. It's Psalm 145, verse 18. The Lord is near to all who call on Him, to all who call on Him in truth. If you haven't done so already, we would encourage you to call on the Lord today. Well, until next time when we'll hear part 2 of Miranda's story, I'm Jimmy Colefax, encouraging you to share your story with someone today.
Next time on The Story.
My little daughter, she needed her hem sewn up, and I said, Rachel, Mummy will do that. And she said, no, Daddy will. And I realised that I was no longer the mother in the house. And so that day I went up to Christine and I said, Christine, would you like to buy my business? And the business was sold.
Once again, Miranda Burness from Ballarat joins us to tell more of her incredible story. She had a successful business and was on her way to becoming an international netball umpire when she was hit by a car and experienced multiple significant injuries. We'll hear how God miraculously heals her next time.
The Story. Just another way Vision is connecting faith to life.